Texas law that bans abortion before many women know they're pregnant takes effect. So I'm hoping for your insight on this, because I will admit, not being a complete legal scholar, but the short version of it for us lay folks is that the Supreme Court basically found that they were not, or are not going to overturn a Texas law that bans abortion before 6 weeks, or after 6 weeks. So it'll it also allows people to sue abortion providers and anyone else who helps a woman obtain an abortion, including those who give a ride to a clinic or provide financial assistance in obtaining an abortion. I mean, this goes so far beyond anything that we have seen before, and will effectively make abortion illegal in Texas. And it also, in a very sick and twisted way, deputizes private individuals to become bounty hunters. And I saw things popping up on like Reddit and stuff where people are trying to figure out how they can best capitalize on this, which is grotesque, among other things. But I mean, what is the legal maneuver? I mean, I've heard people refer to the shadow docket, but I figure I'll let you break that down a little.
Shadow docket is a docket before the Supreme Court, and like the Supreme Court obviously doesn't have time to hear every case that comes before it. So, like in the shadow docket, like because this law is pretty facially unconstitutional, they would seek an injunction, which is to say we have to halt this law until the Supreme Court has time to decide about on its merits, right? And so what would normally happen is something that's blatantly unconstitutional with this law. Supreme Court says, okay, we'll provide an injunction. This law can't go into effect. And then eventually maybe the court decides whether or not to hear it. The lower court decides whether or not to hear it. And then they go from there. The Supreme Court 5-4. So it wasn't, they just didn't provide an injunction. So 5-4, not signed, dead of night. We're not going to provide an injunction, so this law can go into effect, right? So that's the Supreme Court. Now, it's procedurally a clusterfuck. I cannot sue the state of Oklahoma for passing some dipshit law, which they do constantly. But I can't, so if whenever, and this happens quite often, the state of Oklahoma passes some dipshit law, you will see, what's the new AG's name? Who's
O'Connor,
the murderer,
John O'Connor.
You would see Jones versus O'Connor, because on the O'Connor, whatever the unconstitutional law that I'm asserting is unconstitutional that the state passed, say O'Connor as the attorney general will be required to enforce it. So it would be Jones versus O'Connor, right? Well, this law in the procedural clusterfuck says, well, Nick can enforce the law, and Ron can enforce the law, and basically a fucking land gnome can enforce the law. So you can't, so this law says, gives a right for me to sue a woman getting an abortion, her ride up there to get, me as a private citizen, her ride up there to get the abortion. I guess whoever bought her hot Cheetos on the way and got her pumpkin spice latte, I don't fucking know. Yeah. So like that's how this law is a procedure, like a clusterfuck of procedure that like is unseen. Like a lot of articles are saying that Texas is rewriting the laws on abortion, because again, like generally you pass a law, the AG and whatever entity enforces it, and if I find it to be unconstitutional, I'm asserting it's unconstitutional, I will sue the AG, I will sue your state environmental agency, I will sue whoever is supposed to be enforcing this unconstitutional law, because I can't sue the state. Well, this is just saying wholesale, this is an individual action given to individuals to sue. So like it's asinine. And again, sue on the basis of 6 weeks, getting an abortion after 6 weeks. So those are and I'm not a constitutional scholar. I don't purport to be, but I'm pretty swell as an attorney. But and the overarching thing is control of women's bodies, and control of people's bodies who have a uterus. And it's again quite ironic, because it always gets to this movement being complete bullshit. So we can't ask you to put on a mask, right? A mask that has been proven to prevent mass death to quote unquote save life. What the fuck is more pro-life than that? But you can invade a person's uterus and say, you must bear child, right? That is an invasion of freedom, but a mask is. It's bullshit. And
Yeah.
you know, like again, we mentioned this last week, but you guys should read Supreme Inequality. As a chapter on, you know, like reproductive rights. Like the Supreme Court, the conservative movement has realized, because actually, you know, while we live in Oklahoma and we the people here are loud, the anti-abortion activists are loud around the country. But if you actually poll it, like a complete ban on abortion is not popular.
Not at all.
Popular at all. And I say that to say conservatives realize that they are on the losing side of much of their policies. People kind of want health insurance. People kind of don't want to invade uteruses, right? People kind of don't want the world to fucking burn from climate change. They realize that they're on the losing side of the arguments. And so what do? You control the courts. So whenever popular progressive legislation is passed or unpopular legislation is passed, you have a chance to hinder popular legislation and champion unpopular legislation through the courts. This is not new. This has been in the works by the Federalist Society, by the conservative movement for generations, and we're seeing it now.
Yeah, I mean, so what I'd like to break down, I mean, I feel like obviously there's lots of things here to unpack. I mean, from women's reproductive rights of uterus-bearing folks, and you know, just obviously the conservative thing. But I want to talk like real quick about like the politics of it, because what infuriates me is the kind of the Democrats' inability to, and liberals in general, inability to like to figure out how to get out of this, right? I mean, the conservatives created the Federalist Society. I mean, this has been a 40-year project to take over the courts, and they've now won. I mean, they have a significant majority on the court. I mean, it's gonna be really hard to get.
So really quickly,
Sure.
Mitch McConnell basically started refusing to seat judges in like 2013. Harry Reid had to destroy the filibuster. Once Republicans took the Senate in like 2015, they just refused to seat any judges for President Obama, and they left those vacancies open for Trump. So Trump nominated not only to the Supreme Court, but to the Court of Appeals and to the lower federal courts, massive numbers of judges in one term, in numbers that may have never been seen.
Yeah. And so I've told this story before, but I'll tell it because it's so, I mean, whoever these people were, which I can't remember their names, but I went to a national political conference right after the 2016 election. Like, it was for a national organization. And like, timing-wise, it was just that's when it was held usually. And it was going to be this big, like, you know, Hillary won, you know, first woman president. And obviously they had to rewrite that whole thing. I feel like we got, like, their rawest, like, emotion. And seeing in this room, obviously everyone's, like, pretty depressed because Trump won, and you know they knew it was terrible, but these folks painted the bleakest picture I have ever heard about the Supreme Court. I mean, they literally used the term "the Supreme Court is lost for a generation," and that was before Ginsburg refused to retire, well, I guess it was after Ginsburg refused to retire. It was before she died, and now, like, you know, Breyer's, you know, setting up to do the exact same fucking thing when you have a 78-year-old president who is of questionable health, and a VP that's got the worst polling numbers of any vice president in the history of the Republic. You know, it's like, maybe we don't repeat this one, guys. Like, maybe. And so you've got those politics, like the politics of like the massive egos of the Supreme Court and just how disastrously that's played out. But then you've got like this deal where the Democrats, I mean, we're starting to see it now with this infrastructure bill. They can't bring Joe Manchin to heel, but it's like they've got to figure out a way through this, because I mean, once the courts can just make up their own law or refuse to hear stuff or use these hitherto unmentioned tools to further the conservative agenda, I mean, it just makes everything you're trying to do harder. And you can like preach that you care about the little guy and that you want to fix problems and that you respect, you know, abortion access and blah, blah, blah. But if you don't do anything, I mean, two questions. Do you really believe this stuff? Or two, like, why the hell should we vote for you if you can't deliver any goods, despite the fact that, like, again, I can show you poll after poll after poll that even in Oklahoma, nobody wants to ban abortion. Like, or, I mean, obviously some do, but, like, it is not a majority position. So, like, y'all got to figure out a strategy here, and you got to figure it out quick because we're pretty much fucked.
Republicans, again, like the FedSoc came around in the 80s when they were like kind of their height of power, right? Reagan Democrats, quote unquote, had swept the nation in the 84 election. And they still were thinking about, okay, like we know we're on the losing side here. It's been existential to them for generations. And we just don't treat it like that on this side of the aisle. It's like respect for procedure, respect for rule of law. What fucking rule of law when the Supreme Court is 5-4 dead of night shadow docketing shit, right? Like, what respect for rule of law when that judge in Texas is saying, no, the stay in Texas policy is cool, right? We're leaving migrants over there, like, yeah. Like I don't know where this like perceived like it's just respect for systems comes from, but like it's existential to them and they're kicking our ass because of it. Like, we just have to blow some of this shit up. We have to ram through DC statehood. We have to ram through Puerto Rico statehood if they want it. We have to ram through like 18-year terms for judges. We have to ram through all of these things because they're ramming them through. And Mitch McConnell's frank about it. Like, if we maintain control of the Senate and they win the White House or something, just don't sit any judges for them. Like they're open about the fact that they view this as an existential crisis, and we do not, and we don't fight like it, and they do.
I mean, even going back to the Gorsuch fight, I mean, it's like, Obama, we had a conservative Supreme Court justice die, like what, in like March, April of an election year, and they held out for the entire time and didn't, seat Obama's judge, and then Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies like 6 weeks before the election, on her deathbed says, do not replace me until afterwards. And they fucking ram someone through in like 4 weeks. It's just like, you cannot compete like this. Like, this is just from just a cold political calculus tactician thing. It is embarrassing how badly you're getting humiliated by these guys.
You'll never win if one side plays by the rules.
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell realized long ago there will be no penalty to him for not following the rules. In fact, on that side of the aisle, because they view this existential, not following the rules makes him a folk hero over there. So, and he realized that long, long ago, along with his only other principle, which is money should flood politics. Yeah. So if one side follows the rules, if you're in a game of one-on-one and there's a referee and you're actually not fouling because he calls the fouls and the other guy is fucking hacking you to death and not listening to the ref, who's going to win that game?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just one side is not, like, they're not playing by the rules. So either we can at least attempt to change the rules to be more favorable, right? Or also not play by the rules in some respects. Or like any person with a uterus in the majority of the states will suffer immensely, potentially suffer immensely because of this. And this notion, someone said, if they're in Texas, they can go to Oklahoma, Louisiana. Like, the state of Oklahoma bringing, like, I know they had that like flip switch where like if abortion is made illegal, declared illegal, like it automatically is applicable to Oklahoma. If you think for a fucking second, I'm shocked they didn't call a special session. If you think for one fucking second, they're not gonna just mirror that Texas law, like that'll be like the first fucking bill they pass in this upcoming session. You're kidding yourself.
Oh, I mean, so I pulled up OCRJ, which is a reproductive justice group. put out a press release saying that they've today 5 unconstitutional abortion restrictions passed by Oklahoma's lawmakers earlier this year were challenged in state court. I mean, I think these were supposed to go into effect in November, but they're trying to get out ahead of it now. But they were they were almost as bad as, they were as bad as the Texas one. The laws challenged in the lawsuit are: 1, a total abortion ban declaring that providing an abortion at any stage in pregnancy qualifies as unprofessional conduct by physicians, which will result at minimum in suspension of licensure.
Well, hold on one second, Nick. I just want to say, I wish they were this fucking creative about literally any problem we face. Like, can you get this creative about, I don't know, school funding? Can you get this creative about, I don't know, a global murderous pandemic? They just find ways to just try to make abortion illegal. But when it comes to having kids go to school 5 days a week, or 1 in 4 children not starving, we don't know what to do there. Like, I don't know what to fix. I don't know what you want us to do.
Well, and as Athena pointed out, like, they're pro-birth. Like, I mean, it's like you will force someone to give birth basically just to, like, take the kid away at DHS if they can't take care of it. You know, I mean, it's such a sick,
potentially put the mother in jail, right? Like
right.
There's a reason we lead the fucking country world in incarceration of women. A whole lot of that is like, oh, your house was dirty, child neglect. Like that's really a thing here. Let's just call it what it is. They fucking hate uteruses. I don't know what uteruses did to them, but they fucking hate uteruses for whatever fucking reason.
Yeah. And so, I'll just rattle off these real quick. Like, a law will ban abortion as early as 6 weeks into pregnancy before many people even know they're pregnant, which is basically what the Texas law did. A law that would immediately decimate abortion access by disqualifying highly trained providers like family medicine doctors because they happen to not be a board-certified OBGYN. And then 2 laws that contain a host of restrictions on medication, abortion pills, including requirements have already been struck down by the Oklahoma Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court, like an admitting requirement. These are extremely creative laws that woven together will ban access to an abortion, which, again, no polling anywhere says that it should be 100% restricted. And what's even more sick about it is that rich people will always be able to get on a plane and go somewhere where they can get one. I mean, hell, they might even go overseas eventually if it gets so restricted nationally. In fact, the Lost Oval, I think, put out a piece right before the last cycle that the guy who beat Chelsea Branham in House District 83, like, paid for his girlfriend's abortion back in the 90s or something. And of course, then won as a Republican in 2020. So, I mean, there's no limit to the hypocrisy. There's no limit to the grotesque way this will be enforced and who it will be enforced against. And so,
in this absurd quest to declare themselves pro-life, and by the way, the actual conservative movement don't give a. And as you see, the guy who got elected, and so every fucking year there's some dude with 9 abortions we find out about getting elected on that side of the aisle. And the reason is they don't give a fuck about abortion. They give a fuck about maintaining power. They want to utilize abortion as a cudgel to maintain power in this country and to force and inflict pain upon people who have uteruses. This will, in the great irony of this pro-life quest, is it will result in death. And it will result in death in back alley abortions and the like for people, again, who don't have access. And access equals money and resources. And money and that lack of access, those people who don't have it, is who this movement has been basically created to harm, maim, and kill since its inception. So there you have it.
Yeah. Really gross stuff coming out of Texas, but it's here too. And, we'll see if these lawsuits. But I mean, as pointed out with the Supreme Court, it's just the court system is just getting less and less friendly.